Good afternoon and welcome back to the new era of agriculture commodity trade. Welcome to session 2, day 3 of Commodity Week World 2026 or CWW26. Just let me do a mic and visual check. Neeraj, I'm visible as well as am I audible?
Yes, sir. Perfectly fine.
Okay, cool. So earlier today, this global marathon kicked off day 3 by mapping out the high stakes and supply and policy dynamics of the global rice complex in Asia Pacific corridor. Now we pivot our focus away from individual commodity balance sheets and step directly into the corporate command center, where the fate of this multi-billion dollar value chain is decided. We have declared throughout this marathon that the agriculture value chain has crossed a critical threshold. The traditional playbooks, the ones that relied on predictable crop cycles, stable freight corridors, and reliable trade alliances, have officially expired. We are no longer observing cyclical market corrections. We are operating within a baseline of permanent structural volatility. Over the next 4 days, we are continuing to bring the global boardroom directly to your screen. CWW26, organized by HnyB Tech Incubations and Know Your Commodity, is presented by AgriGuru Online and supported by Kripco Agri, Virgin Group International, and Bingani Group, along with our association partners OATM Myanmar, Ukraine Pulses and Soybean Association, GOPKI Indonesia. Other institutional partners include Solidaridad and the World Cooperation Economic Forum. CWW26 is moving entirely beyond the delayed data of historical balance sheets and heavily scripted corporate presentations. This is an unscripted, unfiltered war room. We are here to democratize the high-stake market intelligence, mitigate the systemic risk of information asymmetry, and equip you with the foresight needed to defend your margin and ensure equity for producers and consumers alike. As a reminder, our sessions are beamed live across multiple digital assets on LinkedIn, YouTube, X or Twitter, Facebook, and our own event website. So now let's talk about the leadership view when the tactical becomes strategic. Over the past 40 years, we have detailed tight global maize stocks, unprecedented trade restriction in the rice bowl, and severe execution friction across the wheat corridors. But numbers alone do not move grain. Leadership moves grain. And in an era defined by extreme market volatility and rapid structural transformation, the mandate of C-suite leadership is undergoing a violent evolution. Welcome to the CEO Corner. The theme of this highly anticipated session is leading through chaos when the tactical becomes strategic. We are navigating a completely recalibrated world where day-to-day operation choices now carry profound long-term strategic consequences. The line that once separated the trading floor from the board-level executive office has entirely vanished. When a sudden tariff restriction in South Asia, a currency shock in an emerging destination market, or a localized climate anomaly can instantly rewrite the corporate balance sheets overnight, a single tactical choice can make or break an agribusiness enterprise. Choosing an alternative shipping route, restructuring a trade finance instrument, or pivoting to a new origin is no longer just an operations checkbox. It is a critical strategic decision that dictates market survival. To understand how the world's leading agriculture corporations are redrawing their blueprints, we must dissect the ultimate pressure point modern CEOs face every day. The boardroom pressure points to whether we want to go for resilience, or efficiency. Step into the ultimate global war room as top executives share their definitive playbook for steering agriculture enterprise through fog of geopolitical and economic uncertainty. Let's break down the core strategic challenges our panel will tackle. The death of just-in-time sourcing. For decades, global supply chain prioritized hyper-efficiency, lean inventories, and cost minimization. Today, the world's most resilient CEOs are completely flipping that script. The blueprint has shifted from just-in-time to just-in-case. Top leadership is making the hard tactical choice necessary to build massive structural redundancy, diversify supply networks across multiple hemispheres, and secure certainty of delivery at any cost. Risk management, when the rules disappear, becomes critical. Agribusiness leader can no longer rely on traditional hedging mechanism alone. In a world where trade corridors can be weaponized or closed off in a flash, organizational resilience means embedding extreme flexibility directly into the corporate architecture. One of our leaders from Sumanati Anil will be talking about it, that how he's working with the farmers at the grassroots level and connecting them with the market and ensuring their financing, such type of models are very critical. The leaders must foster decentralized agility, empowering ground level operators to make rapid decisions while maintaining rigid risk boundaries to defend thin commercial margin. This is also where one of our another speaker, Mr. Dushyant Tyagi, will be talking about how he uses digital technology to connect different dispersed mandis all across India, giving a resilient structure where traders can trade from all across India. Similarly, navigating the geopolitical economic fog, whether it is adapting to sweeping new global environmental and sustainability regulation or managing acute trade finance crunches, modern CEOs are operating under a constant state of disruption. And this is where the survival requires a calculated balance between protecting short-term cash flow and deploying capital into advanced innovation like space tech analytics and immutable traceability system to build a lasting competitive moat. So opening this war room is very critical because it gives you a right perspective about how CEOs think or those who are in the leadership position they think. Because the playbook has changed substantially, and not just the playbook, we are also seeing that whole approach towards the business has changed substantially. And this is where our next speaker, who will be Juliana Ingrid, she will, as a consultant and having worked with some of the top corporations across the globe, will be talking about how to ensure that the risk models can be leveraged. And last but not the least, we'll also be having a very profound speaker today who will be talking about different aspects of the food and agriculture business, Mr. Richard Cottingier. So you know that the day of relying on lagging monthly trade statistics or overdated operational framework to guide a global enterprise are long gone. In today's chaotic market, and information asymmetry is a systemic risk and leads to rapid margin erosion. Leading through chaos requires elite, unscripted foresight. And this is where our expert speakers will be talking today and delivering the value which is very important for all of us to see. Our mandate for CEO Corner is simple: no script, no filters, pure executive intelligence. We are going to look behind closed door to see how the industry's highest ranking leaders manage risk, build organizational resilience, and successfully navigate when the traditional rules of global trade no longer apply. To our live audience, please do engage, use chat to voice your leadership challenges, and prepare to rethink your corporate strategy. The market does not wait, and neither should you. It is time to secure your strategic edge. Welcome to the CEO Corner at Community Week World 2026. Let's officially open the Leading Through Chaos War Room. So our first speaker, unfortunately, he was not able to join us in live. He has shared his video, and we'll be having Mr. Anil Kumar SG. Anil is founder and CEO of one of the largest financial institution working at a grassroots level with our farmers called Samunati. This is Open Agri Network and one of the largest in the world, where nearly 3 decades of experience in rural and retail banking at leading institutions like ICICI Bank, Anil has channeled his deep ecosystem expertise into empowering smallholder farmers. Under his leadership, Samunati has enabled gross transaction value in billions of dollars, delivering tech-enabled financial and market linkage solutions to thousands of farmer collectives and grassroots agri enterprise in aggregate. A recognized pioneer in agri-fintech space, he also serves on prestigious national committees of FICCI and CII, which are two trade bodies of repute in India, driving the high-impact social entrepreneurship and innovation that is modernizing India's agriculture sector. Now, how is the questions which we have put across to Anil are how is Samunati open agri ecosystem is actively buffering Indian smallholder farmers from the macroeconomic shocks which we are seeing today? When traditional rural credit market freeze during period of chaos, what specific agri-fintech structure are most effective at maintaining the critical liquidity for agriculture collectives? From his perspective, what is the greatest operational challenge in rapidly scaling market linkage innovation across highly fragmented rural value chains? How to balance the rapid deployment of technology-enabled ecosystem with the physical on-the-ground realities of agriculture household operating on razor-thin margins? What policy shifts are absolutely critical right now to transition smallholders inclusive financing from a developmental goal to highly profitable corporate strategy? So these are all pertinent questions which we have put across to Anil, and we look forward to his intervention. As I said, unfortunately, he's not joining live, but just now he has shared a video, and we will be playing that video because still we are having the exactly same flavor which is required. So with that, we'll let you with Anil. Thank you.
Samunnati as an entity is focused on making markets work for smallholder farmers. This sentence is what drives us, making markets work for smallholder farmers. Because smallholder farmers need to be at the epicenter of whatever interventions that we have. And for that to be pursued, one needs to understand the entire agri ecosystem and how do we engage this ecosystem in a comprehensive manner. And this is where Samunnati's approach of aggregation, market linkage, and advisory services becomes extremely important. The AMLA approach, as we call. And within the AMLA approach, we understood that you start with finance, which is where the trust gets built. Then you come into the market linkages, that's where the value transmission would happen, and then get into advisory services so that the agriculture that they are pursuing, the activity that they are pursuing becomes a higher order in value and volume. So that's what we are as an organization. So on your first question of
how is Samunnati's open agri ecosystem actively buffering India's smallholders from the macroeconomic shock of global commodity price movement?
Right. First, let us understand the context of this chaos that perhaps you are alluding to. It could be the global cues, it could be the external environment, it could be the war that you are referring to. But what is important to understand is the global commodity prices that are now swinging are not new. But what has changed is the speed with which these are getting transmitted to the Indian farm gates. That has got accelerated. More often than not, smallholders are the last to benefit from the upswings and the first to absorb the downswings. And hence, most of the institutions shy away from any of these volatilities, leaving the farmer high and dry. Exactly when the support is needed is when the ecosystem fails to support the smallholder farmer. Now, what do we do with this insight? And that's what Samunnati comes into picture. Why do we need to be with the farmer when the volatilities are higher? First and foremost, the market visibility as an infrastructure is an important dimension. Now we operate in about 100 value chains, 28 states, about 30,000 farmer producer organizations, which means no one risk can actually create a havoc or create the volatility across the entire segment, right? You have sporadic risks or the volatilities coming in one value chain or the other. For example, when the shrimp value chain or the seafood value chain is going through stress, you perhaps have a good demand and value for, say, maize as a value chain, given that maize is going into ethanol. Like that, agriculture value chains, multiple value chains also add a little bit of buffer. Second one is whenever you are working with the farmer on a platform in a transaction-led approach, there is no speculation. The farmers are not guessing the price. They are responding to the real demand because there is a real commodity to be sold, and that changes the entire risk dimension, the entire risk calculus. At the same time, when you have working capital moving in sync with the trade flow, means farmers don't resort to distress selling because of the volatile prices and volatile periods. The tactical liquidity decision becomes a structural buffer in this context. So as I said, the requirement is to look at transaction as a whole, look at the aggregated capacity and aggregated reach as a whole, and stay with the farmers when the external environment becomes choppy. So what is the leadership insight that we may look at in this room? The buffering that the system has through the network and multiple value chains is not built for the crisis. It was built much before it. The leaders who are protected are the farmers who have already assumed this risk and made the integration investment. So that is what I would mention.
When traditional rural credit market freeze during periods of chaos, what specific agri-fintech structures are most effective at maintaining critical liquidity for agriculture products?
The Irony is this pattern repeats every time. Credit markets freezing exactly at a moment when the markets need liquidity, including agriculture, is not new, whether it is post-harvest or mid-procurement or when the prices of the commodities are in a flux, is when the credit markets freeze. More often than not, there is also a comfort by many lenders that collateral-led lending is the best, and they also retreat when there is volatility. Both the farmers and their collectives left stranded in such situations, and what follows is a distress selling. This is not bad luck. In our view, this is a flaw in the structural design which is set up for failure. What do we do when such situations arise, and what has been our experience, right? It's again important to see what is the credit that you are doing. Are you taking a balance sheet call? If yes, then the market conditions would make sense. When you are bringing your credit embedded in the transaction, then the finance is riding on the real trade flows. There is, whether onion is at 20 rupees or 40 rupees or any commodity at X rupees or Y rupees, you are basically underwriting the transaction, not standalone balance sheet. When you can see the produce moving from seller to buyer, the risk doesn't spike when the sentiment moves. Right? Second one that is important, as in such situations, as per our experience, is context-led underwriting means the portfolio would not behave like the broader market during freezes. That tactical design is important and is the most defensible strategic position. And third, and last but not the least, self-liquidating structures that are tied to the order fulfillment and repayment built into the transaction itself do not depend on the farmer's future goodwill, but is embedded within the entire transaction. So some of the things that we need to be aware when we look at structural enablers to keep the liquidity available both to the farmer and collectives is, let us take the Kisan credit card, the KCC, as the floor, which provides the immediate working capital so that it can, to a large extent, prevent the distress decisions before they happen. Then what else is required? Crop insurance, when bundled with credit, often provides the safety net, often provides the risk mitigant, so that the farmers keep their stock and the lenders don't exit the transactions. And of course, the revised FPO credit norms and reduced burden on the NBFCs and banks is also an important one, so that they remain when there is a tendency or when there is the heightened risk that may prevent them go away. Last but not the least, the digital trade visibility platforms are important because order books stay open even when the credit sentiment freezes, and buyers and sellers remain connected for that transaction or for any future transactions. So if you summarize, the strategic lesson in your second question is that institutions that maintained liquidity during chaos were those designed to be inside the value chain, not outside it. And that is an architectural choice, not a crisis response.
Okay. Now coming to our third question, from a CEO's perspective, what is the greatest operational challenge in rapidly scaling market linkage innovations across highly fragmented rural value chain?
The straight answer, or the honest answer, is scaling integration is harder than scaling any single product. Because every instinct in a phase where there is growth pushes you to scale what is working. That's a natural human tendency. A credit product or a marketplace or a structure or an advisory tool, as they say, why rock a sailing boat? But the brutal reality is none of these interventions work in isolation. The challenge is keeping finance, market linkages, and advisory services moving in one connected system while scaling fast across diverse geographies. So we need to have the discipline of the comprehensiveness while keeping the simplicity of scaling one single intervention. If you see from a fragmentation on the ground, how does it actually look? Right? You have multiple value chains, multiple seasonality patterns, buyer structures, quality norms, risk profiles. There is no one size fits all. There is no one universal playbook. Even from the provider's perspective, the FPOs range from highly governed, professionally managed collectives to nascent groups with no track record whatsoever. Treating them same destroys the value. And what are the buyer's expectations from the FPOs or farmer collectives? The buyer's expectations are that they have traceability, there is a consistent volume, on-time delivery, routinely exceed FPO's capacity at the point of scaling. Closing that gap is slow, unglamorous, and non-negotiable work. So we need to have a comprehensive engagement and not look at scaling that is easy to scale. The leadership challenge often that does not get anticipated is speed often creates illusion of progress. Having seen the rural markets from close quarters, in fragmented rural markets, speed without depth creates fragile connections that break under the first pressure. And hence, the hardest decision any leader in chaos need to make is slow down a scaling initiative, because the collective isn't ready even when commercial pressure says go fast, grow faster, and scale, right? So in our context, what chaos revealed is that the four entity structures that we have are all aligned to one mission, but bring four capabilities, the financing capability, the experimentation capability, the market linkages capability, as well as the capacity building capability. The structure holds everything together, whereas the four capabilities propel in a comprehensive manner. Also, when COVID disrupted the physical value chains, it was the digital backbone that kept the system connected. That infrastructure investment made before the crisis became extremely important enabler for scaling when the crisis actually happened.
Okay. Now, the fourth question is, how do you balance the rapid deployment of a technology-enabled ecosystem with the physical, on-the-ground realities of agri households operating on razor-thin margins?
This is an important question. The failure mode usually is not spoken about enough. And if you look at it, technology deployments are designed for scale and speed routinely, but fail at the last mile. Not because farmers are resistant, but because the sequencing was wrong. For a household which thrives or which survives on razor-thin margins, a failed technology interaction is not a friction. It is not a failure of technology. It is breach of trust. And that breach of trust takes years to recover. So the sequencing principle that chaos forced us at Samunati to internalize is finance first to earn trust, market linkages to prove value, and advisory and technology to deepen the capability. You cannot lead with an app for a farmer who has never had a formal credit relationship. You earn the right to deploy technology by delivering tangible value first. Soil diagnostics, climate intelligence, price forecasting, these are all powerful tools, but only actionable when the farmer has the working capital and the market access to act on what they learn. So theory and practice in agriculture have to go hand in hand, and most importantly in tandem. So how do we deploy technology without imposing it on our farmers? SAIL, our innovation and partnerships vertical, validates agri startups or agri tech startups and their technologies before they even touch our ecosystem. Unproven tools do not get tested on vulnerable communities. Do no harm is an important principle. Technology is embedded into existing workflows, whether it is trade processes or it is credit disbursement, advisory touchpoints. They are not added as a new behavior demand on top of an already a full day that the farmers have. The digital backbone serves the ecosystem first. Farmers facing tool are the last layer, not the first. Right? The other dimension that we need to understand is about the margins. The margin reality often kept us honest. Every technology intervention must show near-term visible return on investment to the farmer. That's important. Not a development narrative. You should not say, I will do this, I will do that for the sector when there is no additional rupee to the farmer. It should not be on a future promise. It has to be on the present gain, the here and now. And risk mitigation before productivity tools is an important dimension, because a farmer who feels financially secure takes productive risks. A farmer who doesn't ignores even good technology. So if you look at all of this, the leadership reflection would be in chaos, The temptation is to accelerate technology deployment as a signal of progress. The discipline is to hold the sequence even under pressure.
So coming to the last question, what policy shifts are absolutely critical right now to transition smallholder inclusive financing from a deployment goal to a highly profitable corporate strategy?
This is a very, very important dimension that we need to look at. Let us reframe the industry needs. Smallholder finance is not a welfare obligation. It is an underserved, high volume credit market with a strong repayment culture and improving risk infrastructure. The chaos of the last 5 years has done more to prove the model than a decade of advocacy. What we need now is policy that lets the private sector run with it and participate proactively. 3 shifts in our view are non-negotiable. Number 1, FPOs to be recognized as formal economic institutions. Number 2, layered financial security is the need of the hour, not just access to credit. And last but not the least, agri data to be provided as a public infrastructure and not, one more intervention where everybody is working on it. Now let's double click on each of them. FPOs as formal economic institutions. What can we do here? If you can look at the credit guarantee norms, maybe there is a need for revising the credit guarantee norms as the critical first step. Lower the barrier for a collateral, bring mainstream lenders in without their dependence on the subsidies. It is high time that we as a country have national policy on FPOs, and that must give collectives the legitimacy. So let us double click on the FPOs as formal economic institutions. What we need to look at here is on the credit guarantee. The revised credit guarantee norms is the first critical step. Let us look at lowering the barriers for collateral, bring mainstream lenders into the sector without their dependence on the subsidy. Second, as a country, it is high time that we had the national policy on FPOs that gives collectives the legitimacy and the financial standing to shift the mainstream financial institutions' perception from community group to an investable counterparty. And unless FPO is treated like a business entity by the financial system, by the mainstream financial institutions, inclusive finance remains a development story and not a viable business proposition or a commercial one. Second one is look at the layered financial security, not just credit. Kisan credit card at scale for working capital, crop and life insurance bundled with credit de-risks the lenders and the families of the farmers and stabilizes farmers through volatile periods. Add to that long-term savings instruments and pension products for farming households. A farmer with financial security takes productive investment decisions. Without it, every shock triggers distress behavior that destroys value chain reliability. Agri data as public infrastructure, land records, crop data, trade transaction histories. If lenders can access and underwrite against this data portably and at scale, risk-based pricing becomes possible and smallholder finance becomes genuinely profitable. This single unlock does more for the commercial viability of agri-finance than any guarantee schemes. Information asymmetry is the real risk premium, not farmer behavior. So if you look at profitability as a case, when risk is correctly priced using value chain and transaction data, agri-finance margins are strong. The problem has never been returns. It has been risk perception built on information gap. And hence, Samunati's embedded model has demonstrated this at scale. Policy now needs to create the rails for others to follow. So if you look at the closing provocation for the room, based on our experience, we are one policy cycle away from smallholder inclusive finance becoming the most attractive credit segment in India. The asset quality is there, the volume is there, the digital infrastructure is being built. The question for every leader here, are you positioned to capture that? or are you still treating it as someone else's problem? The choice is what we make. Thank you.
Pretty interesting intervention by Anil. And I would like to thank Anil because he had a last moment travel change, but he still took time to share this excellent, insightful question and answer with us so that actually our viewers get the gist of one very critical aspect of agriculture, the farmers. And we all know that farmers collective, grassroots farmers, they are the most important piece of agriculture and food system. So with that, we would like to move to our next speaker, pretty strong voice in form of Juliana Ingrid Ribeiro. And Juliana is a highly specialized commodity finance professional working as an independent consultant, having served some of the large corporations across the globe. Operating with the European corporate framework, she is an expert in portfolio risk modeling, trading governance, and raw material hedging execution. Her core expertise lies in designing strict middle office compliance systems that safeguard multinational corporation margins from extreme volatility of international dairy, grain, and soft commodity market. Juliana, welcome to this webinar.
Hello, Deepak. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me well?
All good, loud and clear. Thank you.
Perfect.
So Juliana, so first question to you. So we see that in an era of extreme price volatility, which we are seeing today, in agricultural commodities, in edible oil, in crude oil, currencies, how do you design a compliance system that are rigid enough to protect corporate margin, yet agile enough to seize fleeting market opportunities?
Well, this is a question of 1 million because depends on if we are talking about the large corporation or small and medium business. Each of them has, different needs, different challenges. But in my experience, considering specifically the middle office, I always think about a system platform. So before, like 10 years ago, maybe, we were relying much more in ERPs, hard codes. And as the technology has evolved, I would say that today having only one system or only one way to deliver things is not suitable anymore. That's why I learned to start to create a type of system platforms where you can integrate like several systems and process, and instead of to have only one. So you have again of a flexibility. And other thing depends on if you are in a large corporation. For example, if you have like a global policy, it could bring to you a lot of agility in the decision making, but you need to trade off to the possibility for you to miss a bit of the local visibility. And if you are a mid small business, like if you have a farming, crop inputs, like different type of business, you can have like again, probably you lose in the ability to have like expensive systems, but you have more local visibilities.
Perfect, very well articulated. To totally agree with you. Like, different type of business have different requirements, and that is also something which we have to understand. Like, even in the different sectors, right? In agriculture or food system, you are having a complex value chain, right? From input side, you have nutrients, you have protection, you are having seeds, then you are having logistic, and similarly, when we go on the commodity side also, and there is plethora of commodities, and each commodity is very different than actually like in any other commodity. And that brings me to my second question. When we talk about these geopolitical shocks which are disrupting international agriculture commodities market in particular, what are the most common failures you see in traditional risk modeling?
Well, if you think about it traditional as historical data, for example, look to the past to predict the future. This is also a trick nowadays because if we are like in the large corporation, this is the mainly way to get the things like fundamental analysis, look into the past. And I think today's we are living a so unpredictable world, like weather. How can you like preview or forecast the weather to the next year with certainty? So you cannot look at the historical data for that, or you do not know anymore the establishment because it's changing. How can you model that? So what I'm seeing now, where we have a very fast-moving world, it's difficult to catch up, is the possibility to changing from conservative view to more flexible. And this is a big challenge, and this is where we fail more. Because especially in big corporations, it's difficult to gain agility. For the best that we can, you have a large, like a massive information, a lot of stakeholders to manage. So simplification, I think, is the key. We are looking to understand how AI will make structural change, but I would say that the timing to response to the world changes or to have different ways to look at the same risk is where we fail more, like agility, I would say.
Excellent. So I understand, like, when we are talking about this agility, right? Agility brings in like in the system where you have to get your hands deep into the daily execution as well. Well, not top C-level people would like to do that, but the current chaos has put us all in a situation where even a small decision, for example, like, which origin, right, to have exposure to, or that manner, any specific immediate change in the government policy in some specific markets can change, the decision making from a trading desk to the desk of a C-level suit. In these daily execution of hedging, how do you think that in the extreme weather events and geopolitics, which we are seeing on a daily basis, become the primary drivers, specifically for soft commodities, which are pretty sensitive to such movements?
Yeah, so I'm changing my mind a bit to this year with a lot of different scenarios. Some of them we never seen together, like everything happening at the same time. So we are living a very special time. And but usually we keep more or less the same measures, like the KPIs or what could bring some insights. To be very simple in my answer, I would say it is the hedge ratio, the coverage, and usually we are tracking really well the mark to market. But as the mark to market can substantially change in 1 week, and the reactions, especially like in FMCG company, so you take time to reflect or to impact the business. I've been thinking much more in mark to plan. So this way we are understanding that the plan is like whatever is the plan, if it's the annual budget, if it is the rolling forecast, we need to push back to have good plans, so we can react in accordance to the plan as one voice. Because if you just react to the market immediately, like our issues with agility will compromise. So I would say the 3 or 4, like hedge ratio, coverage, mark to market, and the mark to plan.
Perfect. Now let's talk a little bit about, from the governance perspective. So when we talk from a trading governance perspective, how do you align the risk appetite of multinational boardrooms with unpredictable physical realities of agriculture procurement, especially in some of the difficult geographies?
Yeah, this is a part of these new challenges we are having, because when you act global, any supplier chain disruption, you have some ability to change your supplier or the source of the physical product you're buying. We start to have these tariffs, we start to have new components on this, because there are things or there are points where a hedging strategy cannot answer. Because sometimes you are hedging an exposure, let's say in Asia, but you have a supplier compromise in there, you need to change to Latin America. This change in the physical sourcing, it's become like a huge amount of complexity. So what we're learning, how to bring this to boardrooms, to the C levels, is to start to transform ourselves. So we cannot be conservative and follow only the routines and process, especially if you are under finance, where standardization is has been super important, but now we need to break a bit the rules, refine and find ways to change the process, to change the timing. And it's not easy if you are in large corporation. It's easier if you are a small business or if you are a farming, like a crop inputs. I would say you have more ways to just look in different ways. And then you rebalance, your position. But before you rebalance your position, you need to understand if you have like ability to change your sourcing.
Sure, Juliana. So, Juliana, as you rightly mentioned about the structural changes required, and it is agility of a small organization be able to do it in a better way than a large corporation. Do you see that the cost of compliance and risk mitigation has increased multifold because of the crisis of late, since starting from 2022, when we saw the Black Sea crisis, and now we are having added a couple of more crises, right? One crisis definitely is on geopolitical aspect of West Asia, and other crisis building up is the climate. We have seen that the climate disruption cycles has shortened, right? Previously, you'll have a big event maybe in 7 years or 10 years. Now we are seeing that such events they are having every 3 years or every 2 years. So do you see that going forward, the compliance and risk mitigation budgets need to be addressed, making it a little bit larger for the corporations and taking away the margins from them?
Well, in my opinion, I don't first a quick answer. I don't see like changes exactly in the budget or investment in terms of compliance, because it has been something very stabilized in the companies, the big companies. So compliance is like a core value usually. I don't see this changing, to be honest. Of course, time to time, you could have a call to review where we are in terms of compliance, and then check what are the possibilities to adapt, but always under what is the regulation, like he is allowing us. Like if you look about hedge accounting, for example, what it's possible or not to do under such a regulation. So I would say we could have like a review, a fresh view of something that has been very stable for many years. In terms of expansion changing, no, I don't see anything in special happening because of this. In my opinion, if we should or not, I think if we keep the controls as it is, like in the same sense, in the same consistency, I think it's good enough.
Fair enough. So now coming to the last very pertinent question. So like, and this is very relevant to the audience. What are the key parameters or early warning indicators does the middle office rely on most heavily before adjusting a massive global hedging position? Because now you have to do it far more frequently.
Well, I would repeat the KPIs or what we have before, like coverage, our exposure, especially in exposure, if you can have this agile and fast. And I would reinforce as of today, the mark to plan, like we assessing our position and rebalancing, not only trying to answer immediately the mark to market, but the mark to plan, because the mark to market is quite chaotic. So it's a decision to align more to the guidelines and guidance in the company instead of to the live what is happening right now. Because sometimes we are beating the market, sometimes we are not in the next day. So a new measure for middle office this year that is gaining importance is how we are versus the plan.
Right. Thanks a lot, Julian. But before I let you go, because some of the companies you have worked have been very specifically aligned to sustainability. Do you see the new regulation of sustainability also now adding to the risk or the compliance pressures of the companies?
If you are in a big corp certified company, sustainability is a big topic. And I think the challenge, Deepak, is always how you can balance your cost, because it's an investment in sustainability versus profitability. And yes, I would say there are some discussions around this, but I don't see a change happening right now because of this. Like there is this slower speed when you are like in big corporations or so. The changes in sustainability, I think it's we are learning as the information are coming. There, I would say, in a practical way. There, yes, a lot of discussions, conversations, and trying to align to this.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Giovanna. It's a pleasure to have you for this webinar. Uh, Thanks a lot for joining and enlightening us with some very less talk but critical aspect of agriculture and food trade, the risk mitigation and compliances. And middle office, I believe, plays a very vital role. But the name itself suggests middle, so neither they are seen from the grassroots nor seen from the top. But very important division for sure. Thanks a lot, Juliana. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. So now we have our next speaker, and we are again having someone who has created humongous value, not just for his organization, but I would say the Indian agriculture itself. We have in-house Mr. Dushyant K. Tyagi, CEO at the FarmGate Technologies. And what is very important about Mr. Dushyant is that he has did something which is all of us in India for sure, and maybe many of those who have been trying to track how the global agriculture commodity markets work would have heard about or read about or even created case studies about the ENAM. So he has been someone who has spearheaded India's ENAM electronic trading platform. A complex activity because as we all know that in India, the agriculture is state and the central government subject. And so you need to have concurrence not just from the federal government, you need concurrence from each and every state which would be adopting the ENAM in their mandis. Then we are having complexities that some state doesn't even have the APMC or the mandi system itself. So with all those complexities, getting the policy posed, getting the signatures on the dotted line, convincing the farmers, the trade bodies, the policymakers, and for sure the financial institution, it was a crazy, hectic job. But this is what Dushyant Ketyagi has been able to achieve, and hats off for him for doing that. I would say one of the sharpest and profoundest voice I've seen in Indian agriculture. Even if I see it in the hindsight of what ENAM has been able to achieve, definitely Mr. Dushyant will be talking about it, is that actually that there is a possibility of putting complex system in a very simple manner. And the impact is, as I said, profound. So over 30 years of career featuring senior leadership roles at Reliance Retail, Nagarjuna Fertilizer, he has specialized in spot market digitization, agriculture marketing, and plant nutrition. His expertise is focused on algorithms and genomics revolution, using AI-driven analytics to optimize resource management and solve global food security challenges. So it is always an honor, actually, whenever I share a dais or a screen with Dushyantji, right? It's always an honor, I would say. And he has always been a motivational force. And I'm so glad and so proud to have him today on the stage. Dushyantji, thanks a lot for being here. It's a pure pleasure to be on the same screen again with you. I always try the ways and means to be on same screen or dais with you, sir.
Deepak, good afternoon, good evening. See, this all started, 8 years back, even more than that. Honey, was the earliest, like we say, agriculture digitization or market digitization, ENAM, and before that, our work was kind of pioneering. Honeybee, I see, for long is grew from with the sector, with the, and yes, it's kind of a mutually admiring club. So from an engineer background to one of the most profound, straight, brutal voice for the good of farmers, nobody else. So it's always pleasure to be with you, and it's a joint learning, co-learning, and our contribution towards the betterment of farmers in India and across globe. So very happy to be with HnyB for any topics, and yes, it's a pleasure to talk to you anytime. We have passed nights together to discuss the problems. Probably they were on the very, very, far side. So, but over the years, we have seen, all those issues which we thought will never come on the dais, now addressed, thrashed, and, parked. So this is
Sure.
we
So,
are.
Dushyantji, thanks a lot for coming from you. It's a real, I would say, badge of honor. Thank you for appreciating our work. So now, as I delve into the first question, having spearheaded the digitization of agriculture spot market through ENAM, what is the next critical frontier for eliminating friction and opacity in national agriculture marketing? While doing that, I would also like you to delve a little bit upon the journey of getting ENAM rolled.
So Deepak, see, all of us know very quickly. I will try to comprehend. All of us know especially in India or wherever you have agriculture, or especially, marginal farmers, economies especially. So there are fundamental problems. Three fundamental problems are there. One is, ever dropping holding size. Second is more important for them than production systems, or increasing productivity, or growing more from less is more important. What I feel is enablement, financial enablement, and risk hedging. So that's where we started, looking at the markets, and we thought till the time, this middle portion of the value chain is made better lean and better transparent, the value distribution will not be equated for all the stakeholders, right from growers till the consumers. And farmers will not get their right, share in the value generated. So Enam, today we have projects in 1,700 markets in India. We have digitized these markets in 23 states, 4 union territories. We have crossed around 130 million metric ton of trade. We have crossed $58 billion GTV in last 8 years. We are doing around 25,000 transactions per minute in season time, and off season around 18 to 20,000. So 241 commodities are trading on the platform. So this all is good, and ENAM has proved like, the first step towards creating a digital public infrastructure, especially for Indian agriculture or Indian agriculture sector. And over eight, once we rolled out ENAM, it is our 10th year. We have already completed 10 years in the program. So once it was rolled out in 2014, we saw a lot of traction around ENAM agriculture startup ecosystem, and attention towards the digitization, and attention towards the, many things, including, financial enablement, and as well as risk hedging. So when we talk, if you ask me how much you have achieved in 10 years, and where you are standing right now, I would say 50% of the job is done. So fundamentally, quickly we will understand how a typical agri-trade platform, or agri-sport trade platform, or a e-commerce platform, the five fundamentals, they are sitting in. And if you don't basically join these five fundamentals, you will be deficient, and you will continue to deficient like e-commerce till the time they have discovered a answer to the payments, COD, cash on delivery. They could not gain the trust of the consumers, and that traction never came. But once they discovered and refined and standardized the mechanism of COD, the things have changed, things had changed dramatically for them. So coming back here, for a typical trade platform, we should have enough number of buyer and sellers. Number one, that means enough choice to buy and sell. Second pillar is, once the choices are there, you have to enable your customers to take a decision. So you have to basically facilitate a transaction. Once the transaction choice is made, you have to facilitate a transaction. Means if I want to buy a TV, I goes to Amazon, everything is decided with various things while I navigate through the platform. Finally, I decide, okay, this is the 60-inch TV I want to buy. Somebody really need to come and facilitate that transaction. Okay, I will give you 12 EMI, 24 EMI, or 36 EMI. Financial enablement is very important for the maturity of any type of a e-commerce platform or trade platform. So first is enough choices. Second is financial enablement. Third is financial settlement, transaction settlement. You sell, I buy. Okay, I pay, you receive. So transaction settlement is the third pillar. First is enough choices to buy and sell. Second is transaction enablement. Third is transaction settlement. Fourth is delivery enablement. I purchase 5,000 ton of maize for my factories, but I really don't want to move everything today. I would like to basically store everything near to field and continue to withdraw my daily requirement from various locations. So that to me is called delivery facilitation, delivery enablement. So that is the fourth pillar. Fifth is delivery settlement. You send, I receive. So out of these five, we have enough number of choice to buy and sell. We have 1 crore 90 lakh 90 million farmers, active farmers, those who have used platform more than 20 times in last 5 seasons. So this is quite an encouraging number. We also have around 3.5 crore 35 million registrations. We have around 3,50,000 buyer and sellers. We have around 6,000 FPOs. We have enough number of cooperatives. Means there are enough number of buyers and sellers. For each load coming to the platform, we have at least 7 buyers. But we really don't have at this point of time to financial enablement or to facilitate these transactions. We don't have those kind of a financial products right now. But we are very good in financial settlement. We have settled transactions worth $58 billion with 45 anomalies. Delivery enablement and delivery settlement yet to come. So quickly, if I want to summarize, right now, I mean, if you look into the future for a fully integrated agriculture commerce ecosystem, we really need this really need to be a place where quality assessment, logistics, warehousing, financing, insurance, and settlements are seamlessly connected and connected to the transaction. This all has to come, and technology is going to play a very important role. And fortunately, we are at a crossroad. We are at a traction point where technology is maturing in our country. A lot of people are working together, and one day we will have that inflection point where we will see number of products bill discounting for traders, number of products giving immediate payment to farmers against the current cycle of 10-15 days. So I am very excited to see the next 10 years of ENAM. And in India, as you rightly said, agriculture is a state subject. Each state have their own vision and their own will to execute such a program. So you have to work very hard. We are doing around 20,000 trainings per year. And for case, Tamil Nadu is 100% on ENAM, and Haryana is 40%, and UP is 22%, Rajasthan is 33%. So we have to make all these states to bring to 100% one day. So then probably you will have a fully operational national agriculture market in true sense.
Perfect, Dushanji. So actually, definitely I cannot do much about the politics of it. But luckily we are seeing that in all these states, right? Except the 100% one which you have talked about, right? We are having a single party ruling it. So maybe there would be within parties chief ministers competing with each other. That's a possibility, but you cannot bet on that. However,
one more
yeah,
important point. Or else we basically scale up our offerings and services to a level where stakeholders, users, they force the change.
100%.
And that will be made possible by all upcoming technologies, including AI, for which we are basically counting very high.
No, actually, I was just gonna speak that, and that is where actually your wavelength and my wavelength match, right? You talked about AI. Now, this is where the next question and very pertinent question. Some of the solutions you talked about, right? Quality assaying. Today, with the AI-based vision technology, quality assaying is possible. Few years back, people were struggling. Right now, we are having the type of compute power, type of algorithm, which will actually just even a single grain, it will tell you exactly where is the problem with the grain. In the past, we struggled to even counting of the grain. So that's one part. Then you talked about ensuring the financing and settlements. Now, the problem was that actually risk mitigation to avoid frauds. Now, with the current AI capabilities, right, fraud prevention and fraud monitoring is becoming child's play. In fact, some of the algorithms which I am working on, I am seeing is that actually it can predict who could be possible doing a fraud, even though he's having a track record of 6 years of doing nothing wrong. So those type of technology is again inherently is structured within the AI. So this is where my next question for you. What are, according to you, the greatest barrier to scaling AI-driven analytics across legacy agriculture supply chain that have historically relied on informal manual trading networks? And this is where I believe, the change management, or it could be like, because see, capability of technology is there. It's only change management of the people, cost, and maybe the political will. Your views on this point, sir?
Yeah. So, Deepak, my fundamental belief is this. So, when trust is not built on technology alone, it is built through, the outcome of your effort. So, whenever you work on large-scale digital agriculture platforms, stakeholders do not adopt, technology because it is innovative. They adopt it because it solves a problem better than existing practice. So my whole point was this: we really need to be better than the existing practice. For example, in a remote platform or in a virtual platform where stakeholders probably they don't know each other personally, but those kind of a evaluation of their financial profile, risk profile, and everything, which we see a number of models are coming, and highly performing models are coming. So that brings a lot of trust, lot of confidence while making these remote transactions. And quality quantification is very important. You are in Ahmedabad, I am in Bhopal today. I want to sell some, for example, guavas to you. So I really need to quantify the quality of my lot, not just qualitatively. I have to quantify that quality. Only then you will have right kind of a confidence to quote a right value for my goods. So coming to your the second question, agriculture supply chains, historically they have operated through fragmented and informal networks. And the fundamental problem with agriculture in our country, especially, has remained the quality and availability of data. Because all the intelligence is built on the data and its quality and its sourcing and consistency. So problem is not building a AI. Problem is more to basically solve this problem of capturing data without manual intervention as much as possible. Right? So any AI system, they require structured, reliable, standardized data to generate meaningful insights. So first barrier is quality of data, source of this data, hygiene of this data. We have to build solid structure where all the data is captured most of the time away from manual intervention. Either you use IoT or other things, secondary data, secondary sources. I really don't know. That is engineers' challenge. The second barrier is trust. So agriculture, so far, if we look at it, is a relationship-driven sector. And many participants, they rely on decades of experience and local market intelligence. So technology adoption accelerates only when stakeholders are measurable, when you have measurable outcome for them, so that their trust from human again shifts to machine. And it is happening for all other sectors easily. We don't take manual feedback. How is this shoe brand, how is this shirt brand, or how is this food brand, or how are the services different for Zomato or Swaggy. So because we are believing on our experience or verified data, so outcomes are more important. Technology in our sector will basically improve drastically when we have measurable outcomes such as improved price realization, reduced transaction cost, or better forecasting accuracy. For agriculture marketing systems, these are three very critical component. If your forecast is not right and you are a master in that, right, everyone looks towards you. How much wheat, where from where? So better forecasting accuracy, and then you have to improve price realization for stakeholders. I mean, buyer has to get better value for his or her investment. Farmers have to get their better realization for their effort and reduce transaction cost. Currently, transaction cost is very high as compared to other sectors. The third challenge is interoperability. So whatever data we have available today in agriculture ecosystems, it involves different uh, silos. For example, you have to gather data from warehouses, banks, logistic providers, processors, exporters, government agencies. All these are operating in silos, and whatever systems we are building, they are not interoperable. So we really need to go towards either different systems are syncing at one place and stakeholders are getting the gist of it. So interoperability is important. So first was quality and availability of data. Second was how to build trust. Third was challenge is interoperability, and the fourth most important looks like to be how do we basically digitize workflows, standardize and integrate the data streams, and deploy advanced analytics. These three foundations, once are achieved, I think the job will be far easier. Am I clear, or you want me to quickly summarize it once more?
No, I'm particularly clear. And Dushyantji, actually, I would like to generally, I don't try to indulge into showing something which I would have created, but because what you have talked about, it has touched very important aspect. So let me just, with your permission, take this opportunity to share on screen, right? So,
Yeah.
sir, actually, based on all the great work you have done, right? We have been able to create something which is very interesting.
Yeah.
So this is actually prediction based on enum prices for the farmers. We are
Right.
giving this free of cost to the farmers, actually predicting the price. So this is actually what I'm showing is for tuar dal. While I'm having the minute level of, again, all because of technology and the work you have done, I can go to different type of commodities. I can go to the states, I can go to cities and market and do the 14 days prediction of that. It also tells me actually which market looks to be little bit more positive than others, right? Which APMC is giving me a little bit better prices. And the most important part here, the data quality as well, right? So it also gives you outliers. So the market which I'm talking about, if the data quality is bad, it will say that actually sorry, the data quality is bad. And then actually you suddenly you find that this chart, right? It will have the I would shades which are broader, which say that actually my prediction could be off by a little bit more. Currently, I can tell you tomorrow this is going to be price of tuar in this specific mandi because I see my data accuracy is pretty high. And then actually we are also using so many models, right, which are able to ensure that if there is an outlier, it is caught. Now, the reason to share this is that actually this is the capability of AI, right? It is not Deepak Pareek's capability.
Correct.
And believe me, I'm not being funded by some large corporation, right? It is my own money I put in to achieve that, and it is not humongous money. So what I'm saying and what you rightly mentioned is that AI is there, and that brings me to my third question, which is again very pertinent and very important. See, generally, whenever people talk about AI, right, there are a lot of no sayers, right? Just see a year back when I used to, and you know that I write a lot on LinkedIn, right? I found a beautiful tool actually, Chat GPT, or whether we are talking about Perplexity, so those type of or Anthropic, Claude, right? Where actually I would give my thoughts, I would give basic background of how I write, and I will say that this is what I've written. Please improve it. And believe me, it used to improve it very well, right? But the human intelligence was part of using AI. And people started talking about you are using AI, just as if I'm doing some
So it's
crime.
not
Now you'll be surprised, 99% of them, right? They're using not Google, but Chat GPT for doing even the Googling, right?
correct.
So this is where my next question is that how do you ensure that the strategic leadership, right? They are able to see, right, what's going to happen in future today. Unlike when we reach there, then we have missed the bus. I'll give you an example of India. We don't have our own base models, right? We don't have our own silicon. We are now only in application layer. If we could have seen our industry leaders who would have invested 5 years or 6 years back, $100 million, right? That would have turned into billions. Those who did it, right? You are seeing Entropic coming with the IP of $1 trillion, right?
Yeah.
You are having the Open AI again valued close to $1 trillion. When they started it, the numbers were not that big, right? The investment numbers were not that big. So how do you see that people are being educated or are made aware that you'll have to invest with a pinch of salt in technology. And you have done that in Enam. So that's why I'm asking this question, because some of the ministry you would be meeting, some of the bureaucrats you would be meeting, they would be very, very like, अरे कहाँ एग्रीकल्चर में होता है, किसान कौन सा समझेगा, ये आपने क्या ऑनलाइन कर दिया, लोगों का इंटरनेट नहीं है, अब सबके पास इंटरनेट है मोबाइल के ऊपर, राइट? सो व्हेन यू स्टार्टेड नहीं था इंटरनेट मोबाइल के ऊपर इतना. सो हाउ डू यू पुट दैट थ्रू, बिकॉज यू हैव डन इट एंड योर एक्सपीरियंस ऑन दैट, सर.
See, Deepak, I mean, unfortunately, technology is always resisted, and it has every wave has made us better. I have heard this thousands and thousands time, how farmers will do it. So my answer was, the farmers from 1951 and 2026 have what they have not done. What they have not done. You tell me. They can remember very well and use a complex chemical called imidacloprid. Correct. They are the fastest. Our strongest, social media influencers are coming from rural. The fastest growing, category on Amazon is, cosmetics in rural. So the power of Indian farmers and their understanding, people, everyone, all of us know. But this is first-hand rejection or resistance towards anything. So my way to look at it, I find our farmers very fast adaptive. And you will be surprised to know, though they cannot afford it, how many people are using, Chat GPT in villages these days. At least, all our, they have moved from, there was a lot of noise around, YouTube's. One farmer making 1 crore rupees out of, 1 acre of land. So I was in Shamli few days back and I saw one of the farmer, he says, sir, all these claims are wrong. I have verified it through data on ChatGPT. Correct? And then I have recorded a video how this boy, 10th class boy, and he was telling in a meeting, all this is bullshit. I have confirmed it, and this is the data, and right kind of a yield will be this. And this is where you can cut the cost. So this is the power of human understanding. But yes, how do we do it? We have to, in India is a quantum of, continued relationship, especially in agriculture ecosystem, because interdependencies are there. There is a farmer, there is a shopkeeper, there is a aarti. Their lives are intertwined for long. So we really need to extend these existing relationships and navigate a change. We should never tell someone that I'm here to replace you. For example, in Enam, we told all the, commission agents, intermediaries, service providers, we are not here to replace you. We are here to make you better efficient. Today, even Hamal, the laborer, which basically load and unload, the all commodities, they get the part of their service charges directly into their account from Enam. So my take is in this leadership in such a transformative, initiatives requires extensive stakeholder engagement. You have to really take a internal buy-in first and then goes to the outside world. So once your services, your products are better than existing, definitely, I know the farmers in Haryana, there was a 3 months strike by all the commission agents. One day, farmers realized and they counter demonstrated, we want Enam because we are getting 22% better price for the cotton, not for one day, in a row for 38 days. You cannot stop us.
Perfect. Very well articulated, Dushanji, and we need leaders like you who always keep on pushing the envelope a little bit further. And that is the reason we have reached here. But thanks a lot for your intervention. It is always an honor and a pleasure to have you on our discussion, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. At the end, I will always say, your outcome is the biggest force of change. Like you saw me something, in my 10 years of, I have shared data with hundreds of people. Because, and this is again a challenge in country. Even today, you don't have a data privacy policy. See, if you don't democratize the information, how people will build value over it? How we will make systems better lean like China? How we will be having the best cost, efficiencies across world? How we will have best, logistic efficiencies across world? If you continue to keep all the information close to your heart, no. National security, I don't think we really need to work on this more, because our youngsters from our country, 99% of the startups, Deepak, set up by the engineers only, not for making huge money, because food attracts everyone. 70% of these engineers are coming from rural background, first generation or second generation. So it's kind of a inbuilt streak how I give back.
True, true.
So
And
we
you'll be
have
surprised. Dushyant, you rightly said, actually, you'll be surprised. This model which I wanted to build,
Yeah.
I've asked a company that what it is going to cost me, right? You'll be surprised. They gave me a quote, right, of initial quote that it is going to cost me something around 48 lakh rupees to do this. And they gave me all the reason why it is so costly. I said, okay, fine, I'm okay to do that. I was sitting in Germany talking to these vendors, and my son was listening. Right, he's doing his bachelor's in AI and
I
data
know.
science, and he said, Papa, how much you'll give me? Okay, I said I'll give you 50% of this cost in case you are able to satisfy me, and you'll be surprised. This is built by him,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. I have shared data with hundreds of people, hundreds of aspire. See, just now imagine, this is the trade side of the prediction. If it goes to the farmer side or FPO side, and you build capacities to hold there, just just finance that immediate need of next sowing. Correct? Just imagine, how much consumers will be benefited. 7.5 rupees kg tomato. My wife, buys for 90 rupees a kg on 17th of July 2025. What happens in 250 kilometers? What kind of a value we are delivering to our customers, consumers?
Exactly. Exactly.
So what
Thanks a lot.
thank
Thanks a lot, and we will take this offline. And I think, like, there is a
Yeah.
we always do that. And thanks a lot for
Thank you
joining.
so much. Thank you so much, Deepak, Neeraj. Thank you to you also. Tirelessly always behind the scene,
Yeah,
you
sir.
so much, sir.
Actually, he pushed me. He pushed me actually, like, let's do it 6 days, 3 sessions. I said, are you crazy? He said, no, I'm not crazy. You are crazy not doing it.
Yes.
So he's a pillar of support, like, in the back
Consistent.
end.
The beauty in Neeraj is
Exactly.
consistency. Thank you so
100%.
much. I will not take much of your time. You have other sessions also.
Sure, sure.
Right.
So now we move to our next speaker. We are having Mr. Richard Cotmier. He is a premier global strategist serving as a group chief strategy officer and global practice lead for food and agriculture at FutureBridge. Having previously steered 6 of the world's largest food practices across investment banking and consulting, he excels in demand engineering and consumeromics. His expertise lies in building always-on predictive intelligence architecture that integrates regulatory, technology, and consumer signals to guide Fortune 500 CEOs and private equity boards through structural market transitions. Thanks a lot, sir, for joining so early.
Of course. Anything to help you guys out.
I hope you had a good, strong coffee.
Several of them. Was a number of speeches into late last night, and now we're into either later last night or early this morning. Your decision.
Perfect. Richard, you are having a beautiful image behind you, right? That signifies that where the
That's
world is
right.
heading, right? We ourselves, we are becoming just digital, right? Maybe my skin is 0 and 1, nothing else nowadays.
That's true. I mean, and look, I've been at the heart of agricultural and food technology almost since its very beginning. I was blessed almost 30 years ago to start that journey, and then to be able to take and lead that journey in places like IBM and Accenture, and work on the precursors of large language models, the food safety systems that are now, from a blockchain standpoint, that are used by the United States and the EU for food safety. So been around to see a whole lot of what works and what does not work and why.
So let's come to the very important, pertinent question, because one of term you have coined and excelled in. I would like to understand a little bit more on the consumer mix. Apologies if I've
Sure.
not been able to pronunciate it better. And also how fundamentally it is altering the way Fortune 500 CEOs approach demand engineering during the period of current scenario where it's intense structural market transition.
Yeah, so very few things in technology would I truly call revolutionary versus evolutionary. This is one of them, and it's really tied to a technology change. We'll talk about that in a minute. But consumonics, basically for a century, we have been describing consumer behavioral demand. So we look in the rearview mirror with surveys or with scan data, and we really can't slice the onion very narrowly. And we use correlation to try to create causation. And so, as an old intelligence officer, the answer was, how can we get to being able to predict with statistical causal certainty, similar to a cohort study or similar to valuation science, how consumers will behave and why at the narrowest slice possible. So we would say a budget maximizer at Costco picking up olive oil for a backyard barbecue in a time rush where there are 6 SKUs to choose from, of which each SKU hits different, we call them genomes, that level of specificity. How can we predict that ahead of time? Or if you have, let's say, an ingredient company looking at flavors, how do you determine what flavors to put into your customers', which is usually a CPG company or food service company? How do you predictively model of those 50 which is going to take off in which product and what KPIs that can generate or consumer behavioral demand output and get to that level of specificity? And the answer was really very simple. As old intelligence officers, it was pretty simple to say that the consumer and the market already tells you in a series of open source signals, which, like an intelligence agency, we can collect, we can analyze, we can sort through and tell people why people will act causally rather than waiting on scanner data that tells you how they acted after the fact. And that can be trusted because it's tied to an over 100,000 case study corpus, which grows by about 1,000 cases a day. And what we figured out through almost brute force initially and then modern refinement is that in, let's just say, buying behavior, it's a little bit different in ag trust and in ag science. We can talk about that too. That price, emotion, convenience, and automaticity adoption are the 4 what we'll call genes: PE plus E plus C plus A. And then importantly, they're regulated by trust. So if the product has no trust, food safety issue, for example, there's no amount of price or emotion or convenience or automaticity that you can add to a brand that is going to allow you to gain any kind of behavioral output. Now, what has this done for a CEO? It allows them to rank and score many decisions, many scenarios in near real time. It allows private equity, who has commercial due diligence that's kind of survey based right now, to be able to get to meaningful investment grade insight in 2 to 3 days that's causally predictive at the 70% directional level on just public data. It allows your competitor intelligence to tell you how products will perform on a shelf before you have the first sale of that product on any shelf that you compete on, with a remark, and allows you to react probably about 6 months earlier. It allows you to see technology changes and market shift changes about 9 to 18 months earlier. So it really takes us from being what we call descriptive analytics to predictive and now prescriptive analytics, because once you understand consumer demand, you can then govern and engineer it. And that's consumomics in a nutshell.
Perfect. Perfect. No, I totally appreciate such a deep thought. Really appreciate how you have thought it through. And I think, as you rightly said, very few technologies could be, I would say, disruptive and not just transformational. And this is what we are hearing about. Great work. So now, when we are building an always-on predictive intelligence architecture, which regulatory and technical signals are currently flashing that most urgent warning for the global agriculture, according to you?
Well, remember, global agriculture at the end of the day is tied to global food, right? So at the end of the day, we have a consumer who wants something. So I'd like to start with a couple of the signals that really impact agriculture, but are food signals that we have to deal with. So one of them is the fundamental break in trust between science and kind of litigation signals. So if I just take crop protection for a moment, and that has taught us that being right on the science is not the same as holding consumer permission. And one of the great signals that you can kind of see is that the amount to which we literally vomit science on the consumer, we just barf bleh, all over the consumer's shoe, all of the data is counterproductive. Because the consumer is looking for a decision that requires very little cognitive load, right? And this is the beauty and harm of the MAHA movement, the Make American Healthy movement, or ultra-processed foods in particular. So when we have ultra-processed foods, the idea is for the consumer is, well, if it's ultra-processed, it's, eat occasionally, it's bad for me. And if it's not ultra-processed, well, then it's good for me. A singular decision that defines what I should eat, what I should not eat. That's what the consumer looks for. We look to explain, well, not all processing is bad. Let me show you the data, the science. Let me give you a very narrow case study on folate that may not even apply to you if you haven't been pregnant for a period of time or have children. Let's talk about all these very nuanced situations, and the consumer saying, wait a minute, I need something that's very simple. And so bridging the gap between the simplicity of the consumer decision making in a time compressed environment for which they're spending less and less time preparing their meals or buying their food does not match how we want to explain science and build trust in agricultural or food technology. The second, the GLP-1 psychology shift. So what of the signals is how much is a structural change when we look at GLP-1. So in America, about 12% of families or people are on a GLP-1, but that impacts about 33% of food buying decisions in some way, shape, or form. And so demand is being recalibrated in real time, protein, satiety, calorie dense, etc., that changes agricultural demand overnight. And finally, from a global perspective, you have this signal, what we call a regulatory divergent signal. So you've got EPA, EFSA, Health Canada, India, other countries, and they all have the same evidence, right? They have the same agricultural evidence, and they draw different conclusions. And that creates a fragmentation of consumer trust across the globe. Why do I have this ingredient allowed, but these countries do not have this ingredient allowed? And then because it's difficult to really match these ingredients or claims, we come up with all these crazy concepts that Europe doesn't allow X number of colors or in artificial colors, and then you realize that most of them are just named differently, right? And so we fragment trust off of the same evidence, and in part that's tied to a cultural that needs to change. So there's certain cultures that are are very aggressive and entrepreneurial, and they accept a higher degree of risk. The American entrepreneur in Silicon Valley is a great example of accepting a high degree of risk, right? American consumers in general, American regulatory system in general, will accept will accept a modest amount of risk, and they'll score risk in relative terms. In other words, they'll say, my God, why are you concerned about this when you allow someone to drive a moped in the middle of an, a hyper city, right? Like Mumbai. I mean, you want to talk about risk, let's talk about risk in relative terms. Other cultures will talk about risk in absolute terms and say, is there any chance, no matter how small of a chance, that we have a risk? Well, by not having a common way in which we look at trust, when we have a consumer across the globe that's becoming more and more disassociated from how food is manufactured and grown in agriculture, that creates a confusion. And when you create a confusion, what do consumers do? They go to the least common denominator, right? How do I get rid of all of it? I just want to take the problem and eliminate the problem whatsoever. I don't want to think about it. And now you get two consumers who literally, in surveys that have been done, would like to go to carbon-free food. Now think about that for a minute. Carbon-free food, the closest thing you can find to that is salt. You can't live on a diet of salt. But if you're living with a biological organ, and they want DNA-free food, right? And so the point is the consumer who the regulator ultimately reports to some way, shape, or form in most countries, is saying, just get rid of it because you've made it too confusing. So the number one signal is you have to simplify your storytelling. Bayer was beautiful at this, and aspirin was a simple concept that would improve your health, make you feel better when you had a headache. It was simple. And until we can speak simply, we can't break what we call that V gene for veracity, that trust gene. We can't break this cycle of kind of conflicting trust across conflicting geographies, leading to a fragmented regulatory system.
So you talked about simplicity, and this brings me to my last and very important question, because the way you put analogies and the way you are able to simplify some of the very most profound and difficult concept, right, is awesome. And Richard, actually, like, hats off. And in fact, I've learned a lot, right,
Can I give you one
this.
example?
Please,
Can I
please,
prove
please,
this? Can I
please.
prove this to your example? So does everyone remember the issue of pink slime?
Yeah.
Okay, so pink slime basically took out an entire industry and made hamburger or ground beef prices skyrocket up. And it was because the consumer couldn't understand it, and the name sounds disgusting. It's pink, it's slimy. I don't want to eat it. Here's the problem. It's not slimy. The name by itself was a fabrication. And I would go in and I would say, look, you've just got to give someone like Al Roker on the Today Show, who's a big barbecuing guy, you give him a pound of, in one hand, half a pound of ground beef, and in the other hand, half a pound of pink slime, and see if he feels that it's slimy. So that's one. And the second is you've got to tell the story of why. Why do you do these things that we do in agriculture? I'm like, how simply? I'm like, very, very simple. It was grandma's ham and bean soup. So there's an American and a European tradition that after the holidays, you have a holiday ham. And grandma's frugal. And if you tried to make ham and bean soup with the slices of ham, she would get horrified at the idea. That's for sandwich meat. You make ham and bean soup, you take the hock, you put it in boiling water, the delicious pieces fall off. You are frugal. You are frugal in doing that. I'm like, it's ham and bean soup, guys. Finally, Tetra Lean V was taking the beef hock, dipping it in water, and being as frugal as grandma. And the answer was, it's not a hock. Well, no kidding, it's not a hawk. But how else am I going to explain it to the consumer? The consumer doesn't care whether it's a hawk or not. They can relate grandma's ham and bean soup, right? Instead, we tried to vomit science all over them. And predictably, the market collapsed overnight. Predictably, the retailers who have to sell to the consumer, and if they're on very thin margins, so if they lose a small percentage of the consumer, they walk away. They said, why do we need this hassle? Get rid of it. Get rid of it, right? I mean, and that's where we're at. We're at the market of get rid of things because the hassle's not worth it, because you can't tell a story that's worth a damn.
Perfect. So now this brings me to a very important point. How do you successfully translate the massive complex data set of consumers and macroeconomic signals into hard technical execution strategies for C-suite in a simple way where they are not as confused as Pink's line?
Yeah, so it's really simple. When you can mathematically predict the future KPIs, people listen. When you can give them insight in days that it would take, Sakana or Nielsen IQ, weeks or months to do, they'll listen. And probably the easiest way to explain this would be to take a private equity board. Okay, private equity's under enormous time constraints. They find a company, they want to buy that company, they enter into a hold period where they have some exclusive rights to take a look at that company, and they try to get as much done as they can in a very short period of time. And they figured out how to be pretty quick about the financial due diligence, pretty quick about the operational due diligence. But on the commercial due diligence, it's a very hard, long process. You can do some management interviews, look at some surveys, look at some data, but you can't. But what if I told you that within a couple of days, as opposed to TAM and growth models, you could determine unexpressed demand pockets sitting behind closed trust gates? And we could take in a turnaround where credibility reboots can unlock latent demand and multiply behavioral scores in which products, which companies, which whatever. Let's say it's really simple. You got an ingredient company, and an ingredient company's got 50 ingredients that it could promote, 50 flavors that it could promote. But it's got to narrow those down, right, to about the 4 or 5 that it can then kind of do real consumer research on. So what happens to the other 45? You kind of do one of these institutional knowledge. Yeah, that's a good one. It's about here. Nah, this one's down here. And so about 85 to 95% of the decisions are made on intuition, and the only 5% are scored. So it's really simple to tell them, what if we can rank and score all of those in a day, create mathematical models for it that can be trusted the same way in which you make $200 to $400 million drug decisions. It's the same mathematical model, or the same mathematical model that's behind commodity trade risk management, right? Or the same mathematical model that's behind the safety of a nuclear power plant. Because again, it's the same exact mathematical model. Now, you don't really have to understand the math to understand that we make a lot of big decisions on math, right? Now let me show you, output and say, were you able to generate this kind of understanding of this narrow of a band of consumers in anything like this time frame? And it's falsifiable. We can show you the audit trail for every single decision. When it's wrong, it's wrong, and it gets rebuilt, right? But how certain have you ever been of your decisions going in this early? That's a very easy conversation to have with a player. And our answer is try it. Try it. I mean, look, I'll even run it a lot of times for free the first time. Try it against your method. Tell me which one works better. When you realize, when you see the speed to insight and the accuracy at causally predicting narrow bands, so as opposed to taking the consumer as this national average, you can get down to, what anchor or extender product for this one particular group that represents about 16% of all consumers at my hypermarket needs something that's not there. And how will they behave to the following 6 different potential offerings that I could give them? We can get that specific. And we can do the same thing for measuring messages. So let's say, there's an advocacy group that comes out and starts to confuse the consumer. And now you're trying to figure out, what should we say with a public relations agency? What should we say to a regulator? What should we say to the consumer? Will those messages land? It's the same biological system sorting through the same information to make a decision, right? So if we know the biology behind consumer decision making, then we can apply that not just to a product, but also to an emotion, a feeling, a marketing message, a response to a crisis communication, etc. So we found it remarkably easy, because what's your alternative? Really think about that. What is your alternative? Right now, the very best you have are high-priced consultants who have intuition. What's the alternative? So if we can statistically model it against hundreds of thousands of case studies that are being built, few thousand a day, if it's falsifiable, and if we can run thousands of simulations where you can only run a half dozen, what do you have to lose?
True. Perfect, Richard. I would say, pretty interesting conversation. And in fact, this dimension, even it is a big insight for me also. I keep reading on all these things a lot, but you have opened my eyes wide. I know you got up from your bed, but at the same time, for me, this is a second session, a long sessions, but still, you infected all of us with the energy which you are having. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure having you on the show, sir. Thank you.
It's my pleasure, sir. Take care. Bye now.
Take care. Bye. So with that, we come to end of this second session, CEO's Corner, where actually we tried to have speakers who would give a new perspective to the CEOs who are operating in agriculture and farming domain. And I hope you would have loved the different intervention, whether we talk about FAO financing, financing of smallholders, or to how the middle office can take care of compliances and the risk, to where actually how you can spread digital tools across a humongous number of farmers in a country like India, to finally how to hack the mind of a consumer. So I hope you would have learned a lot. I have learned a lot. In fact, one of the most interesting session of this marathon edition of Commodity Week World 2026. We look forward to welcome you again, 9 a.m. New York time, where we'll be talking about agri-logistics and technology. Looking forward to see you once more today, and also over the next 3 days, where we'll be talking about tomorrow on oil seeds and edible oil. After that, on pulses, and the last session on sugar and soft. So still 3 and 0.3 days to go. 10 more sessions. Looking forward to see you, and thanks a lot, audience, for being there and listening to all the great talks from our speakers and panelists.